The holiday season is now upon us, and the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be a very in-demand item. I've decided to put together a Nintendo Switch 2 buyer's guide for this holiday season. Whether you are a longtime viewer of the channel or potentially a new viewer of the channel, I'm going to tell you all the different options that you have when it comes to the Nintendo Switch 2, and of course, most importantly, what games you need to look out for with the system. Now, of course, you're going to need a Nintendo Switch 2 system. There are currently 3 different versions that are out on the market right now. There is a standard system that comes in at $449, and there are 2 systems that come pre-packaged with a game, one containing Mario Kart World, one containing Pokemon Legends ZA, that both retail for $500. Now, when it comes to these 3 different options, I definitely recommend getting something with a pack-in game, as you will be saving money by purchasing the game packed into the system than buying the game individually. As far as which one you should go for, it really comes down to who you are purchasing this system for. If the individual is a die-hard Pokemon fan who's out there getting all the latest Pokemon cards and all that sort of stuff, the Pokemon Legends ZA bundle may be better for them. But I feel like when it comes to most people, the Mario Kart World bundle is going to be the one to get. Mario Kart World definitely has that pick up and play mentality. There's a lot of things to do in the game. It looks like they're going to be adding additional things into the game as well. But even if they don't, I still feel like there are tons of hours of fun to be had with Mario Kart World. And it's definitely a game that I recommend, but you might as well get it in the bundle. But I know what you're saying to yourself. RGT, $500 dues? That is a lot of money. How am I expected to be able to afford that? Well, that's where today's video sponsor comes into play. Let's be real. Holiday shopping is a hassle, and with new games, consoles, and controllers coming out, this can add up very quickly. Luckily, this holiday season, I'm using Zip at Best Buy to make things so much easier. Zip allows you to buy now and pay over time with easy installments and with no hard credit checks. It's simple and easy to use as well. When checking out on Best Buy's website, you simply choose to pay with Zip and split your purchase into installments. I got these controllers from Best Buy with Zip, and they're going to make perfect holiday gifts this year for my cousin's 2 children. The holidays are stressful enough as it is, so why not give yourself some breathing room this year by purchasing your latest games and consoles through Best Buy and use Zip to give yourself that extra peace of mind. Thank you to Zip and Best Buy for sponsoring today's video. Next up, you may want to get some additional memory for your Nintendo Switch 2 system. Now, the Nintendo Switch 2 comes with 256 gigabytes of onboard memory, 249 which are available to you. Now, if you have a Nintendo Switch 1, you might think that your micro SD cards that you used on that will work on the Nintendo Switch 2, but you would be wrong. The Nintendo Switch 2 uses microSD Express technology, and you must get a microSD Express memory card because the ones that worked on the Switch 1 do not work on the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, you can get an additional 250 gigabytes of memory for about $50 or so when it comes to the microSD Express cards. There are larger cards available as well, and depending on what games you're going to be playing, you may want to look at some of those larger cartridges, but really you can always just remove games that you're no longer playing off of the Switch 2 memory and off of the memory card that you have in order to save a little bit of additional money. Controller-wise, you do have some different options. Thankfully, your Nintendo Switch 1 controllers will work on the Nintendo Switch 2. The Nintendo Switch 2 does have an additional feature that allows you to do game chat with people, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. And that is a button that is on the Nintendo Switch 2 controller. Now, it does come on the Joy-Con that you get with the system, so you're not necessarily missing out on anything like that. When it comes to specific Nintendo Switch 2 controllers, if you are looking for a new controller, there are really 2 different ways to go. You can get the Switch 2 Wireless Pro controller for about $90, or if you're looking for a cheaper alternative, there is a wired controller done by PowerA, specifically for the Nintendo Switch 2, for about $40. It kind of just depends on what sort of gaming you're going to be doing, and if you are going to be playing with multiple people. Of course, you can also buy Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons as well, but your Joy-Cons from the original Nintendo Switch will indeed sync up to your Nintendo Switch 2, so that is something to keep in mind for a cost-saving method. Now, like I said, I did talk about something called Game Chat, and that is a part of Nintendo Switch Online expansion pack for the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, personally, I do recommend getting the Nintendo Switch Online experience, and I do recommend getting the Nintendo Switch 2 Online expansion pack as well, as that gives you access to additional things within the games that you can play. Now, by getting an online service subscription, you'll be able to play your games online, such as the aforementioned Mario Kart World. With the Nintendo Switch 2, it has a built-in microphone, so you could do game chat with individuals, pending that you get the Nintendo Switch 2 Online expansion pack. You can also get camera accessories as well if you want to be able to see your friends when they're playing games online with you, which I think is a nice little thing, but I do feel like the voice chat does work very well. If you get the expansion pack, which does cost a little bit more money, you also have access to classic games available on the Nintendo Switch 2, some of which are exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2, such as the GameCube. There is a growing library of GameCube games that are available with the expansion pack, so if you have nostalgia for older Nintendo games, you do get some consoles on the standard Nintendo Switch Online, but the expansion pack will give you even more consoles, thus giving you more games. I definitely think it's worth picking up the online expansion pack, but if you're not really into the older games, you can just get the standard Nintendo Switch Online in order to access the online features. Now we have the most important thing when it comes to a system, and that, of course, is the games. Now, there's something kind of unique with the Nintendo Switch 2 that causes a lot of controversy online, and that's how the games are distributed. Now, there are three main ways that games are distributed on the Nintendo Switch 2. There is the standard full cartridge release, in which the entire game is contained on the cartridge. You simply plug the cartridge into your Nintendo Switch 2, and then you're off to the races playing the game. There is a new form of media called a game key card that essentially you plug into your Nintendo Switch 2, much like a standard cartridge, but then it requires an online download of the game to your system. If you want to play the game on that specific system, you must have the game key card entered into the console. And then, of course, we have digital games. Digital games via the Nintendo eShop will allow you to purchase full versions of the game, but you will be accessing your memory on the system, much like you will do with game key cards. A full-on cartridge doesn't require any additional storage beyond just things like saves or something like that. Now, many of these Nintendo Switch 2 games are very large file sizes. That's why I said the 256 gigabytes that comes with the Nintendo Switch 2 can easily fill up if you're doing digital and game key card games, because that will take up additional space, which is why I recommend getting a micro SD express card to elongate how many games you can have on your platform. Now, when I'm talking about these games, I'm going to tell you whether or not they are a game key card, a full-on version on the cartridge, or requiring a digital download because it's a digital-only game. The first game I recommend is Donkey Kong Bonanza. If you're looking for a fun 3D platformer with lots of things to do, very pretty graphics, and very fun, addicting gameplay, I think Donkey Kong Bonanza is still one of my most favorite Nintendo Switch 2 games to date. It can get a little bit tedious with the destruction, but I feel like the destruction is the focal point of the game, and it's what makes the game very, very enjoyable for me. Being able to just tear up this world that you are put into is just very satisfying. Tons of different collectibles to find as well. A very enjoyable experience on the Nintendo Switch 2 that is available on a full cartridge, no download required. Next game I want to highlight is Street Fighter 6. Now, this is a game key card for the Nintendo Switch 2, meaning you will have to download the game onto the system. Street Fighter 6, of course, released on other platforms, but the Nintendo Switch 2 version is actually very impressive. In terms of visuals, I think the game looks great. There's a ton of content to do. There's online gameplay as well, and it's Street Fighter. If you're hankering for a fighting game and you enjoy the Street Fighter formula, Street Fighter 6 is definitely a worthwhile purchase on the Nintendo Switch 2 and is a very well done third-party game on the system. The next game we're going to talk about is Cyberpunk 2077. Now, this is a full cartridge release, meaning no additional download is required onto the system as far as the full game is concerned. Cyberpunk 2077 is definitely a bit of a more mature game. I wouldn't buy this for like a little kid unless you're like a questionable parent who just let your kids play whatever. I'm not here to judge you or anything like that, but it's definitely a very mature game with lots of different sorts of themes, such as like murder and boobs and stuff like that. But the Nintendo Switch 2 version is a very satisfying version of the game. It also includes the DLC that came out later on for Cyberpunk 2077 that was exclusive to the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series version of the game. And overall, I think the game looks and performs very, very well. I've actually ran through this game and beaten it on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I had an absolute blast playing the game. The next game is for the wrestling fans out there with WWE 2K25, which is a game key card for the Nintendo Switch 2. This version of the game is right up there with the Xbox Series version of the game that I also own because I'm a giant man-child. WWE 2K25 features great gameplay on the Nintendo Switch 2, online play, and even Game Share, which is a Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive feature. One person needs to own a copy of the game, and you could share the game and play online with friends on your friends list for the system. I've actually tested this out thoroughly with 3 additional people, and it worked great. The experience was absolutely awesome, and that's exclusive to the Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game. If you're looking for a hard-hitting wrestling game, I highly recommend WWE 2K25 on the Nintendo Switch 2. That is a game key card. For a digital-only game, we're going to take a look at Fast Fusion, which is a futuristic racing game that might remind older gamers of games such as F-Zero or Wipeout. It's a fast, futuristic racer with pretty graphics, techno music, and really, really fun gameplay. I don't really know what else to say about it. I think it pretty much sells itself at a very discounted price on the Nintendo Switch eShop. This does not have a physical release or a game key card, so this is a digital-only purchase. But for about $15 or so, this is an absolute no-brainer and a must-play on the Nintendo Switch 2. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3 and 4 is on the Nintendo Switch 2 in a game key card, and I think this is an excellent version of the game. It features everything that the other versions of the game on the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series have, runs at 60 frames per second, and has cross-platform multiplayer, which allows you to play with people on other consoles, and it all works very well. I have sunk a ton of time into this game, and it's very attractive when playing on the television or in handheld mode, and since it's Tony Hawk, you'll have a lot of fun revisiting these levels or checking out some of the new things that are added into the game. If you're looking for another fighting game and you're hankering for some old school action, the Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection comes to the Nintendo Switch 2 with a full cartridge release coming out at the end of November or a digital purchase available now. The Mortal Kombat Legacy Collection features a litany of various old school Mortal Kombat games and different versions of the game. Whether you want to play Mortal Kombat 1 Arcade, you want to play Mortal Kombat 1 Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, because I don't know, you have nostalgia for it, or even the Game Boy or the Game Gear versions of the game. You can play these in this compilation. There's online multiplayer as well, tons of different games to explore, and a full-on documentary. Like I said, the physical release will be releasing at the end of November fully on the cartridge, or you could pick up a digital copy of the game, and I highly recommend this compilation as it is a lot of fun. Another game that I definitely recommend, although it's not out yet technically, is Metroid Prime 4 Nintendo Switch 2 Edition. Metroid Prime 4 is one of my most anticipated games of 2025, and it will be coming out in the first week of December. The Nintendo Switch 2 version of the game features enhanced visuals, mouse controls with the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Con, and just looks to be a more polished experience in terms of visuals than what we'll see on the Nintendo Switch 1 version of the game. There is a bit of secrecy going on with it. There are are some unknowns with it, but with the amount of time that's gone into development with this game, and from what we've seen so far, I have very high hopes and expectations for this game, which will be a full cartridge release on the Nintendo Switch 2. And then, of course, if you are a Nintendo Switch 1 owner, many games run better on the Nintendo Switch 2 than they did on the Nintendo Switch 1. There are brute force upgrades where a game that potentially was targeting a certain frame rate will now reach that frame rate. There are free upgrades available for Nintendo Switch 1 games that make them look and run better on the Nintendo Switch 2. And then there are paid upgrades for certain games that add in things like additional content as well. There's a whole bunch of different experiences that you can have on the Nintendo Switch 2, and I just wanted to recommend some of the games for it that I personally enjoyed or am looking forward to. But there's really so much stuff and so much of a variety of titles that I think there's something for everyone. So that is my recommendations for this holiday season and what games to pick up, what accessories you need, and what sort of additional stuff you need with your Nintendo Switch 2 system. So let me know what you think about all of this in the comments section down below and what you plan on picking up this holiday season. Are you buying it for yourself? Are you buying it for a loved one? Are you buying it for a kid? Let me know in the comments section down below, and let me know if this video helped you out. And as always, thank you guys for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Hit the bell as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.